Meeting to order at 4:30, and before I begin, I would like to do swear in Councillor DeMott for July and August. So Christine, if you don't mind.
I, Christine DeMott, do swear that I will diligently, faithfully, and to the best of my ability execute according to the law the office of Deputy Mayor for the town of Drumheller for the months of July and August 2020. So help me God.
Congratulations. Do you want to sign it? Okay, and I'd like to read a National Drowning Prevention Week proclamation, whereas the mission of the Life Saving Society Canada is to prevent drowning throughout this great country, and even one drowning in Alberta is one too many. Whereas most drownings are preventable in a water-smart community, and only through water-smart education and healthy respect for the potential danger that any body of water may present can we truly enjoy the beauty and recreation opportunities offered by these bodies of water. And whereas the Life Saving Society urges Canadian and residents of Drumheller, Alberta, to supervise children who are in and around the water to refrain from drinking alcoholic beverages while participating in aquatic activities, and to wear a personal flotation device or life jacket at all times when boating. And whereas the Life Saving Society Canada has declared July 19th to 25th, 2020 National Drowning Prevention Week to focus on the drowning problem and the hundreds of lives that could be saved this year. Therefore, it is to be resolved that I, Mayor Heather Colbert, do hereby proclaim July 19th, 25th, 2020 National Drowning Prevention Week in Drumheller, and do commend its thoughtful recognition to our citizens of our town. Do I have any additions or deletions? Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of July 6th? Fred, Lisa, all in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion to adopt the regular council meeting of June 22nd? Tony, Christine, comments? All in favor? Carried. And can I get a motion to accept the minutes of Municipal Planning Commission meeting of June 18th? Lisa, Fred, comments? All in favor? Carried. And I would like to welcome Larry Coney from the Policing Committee to come and do a presentation for us. Welcome, Larry.
Okay, there we go. All members of the council received a copy of the survey. We've been doing this survey now for about 7 years. And we have had senior citizens, and we have people as young as 14 fill out the survey. And it is amazing at how similar their views are throughout the community. This past year, 2020, we had 153 take the survey online. Ages range from 41 to 60 was 48%. Ages 21 to 40 was 27.6%. 61 and over, 23%. 15 to 20 was 13%. So we did get, out of the 153 people, a fairly decent overview. The survey was run from February 7th to April 30. At the end of April, middle of May, a copy of the survey was given to the staff sergeant of the RCMP to put in with his report to Edmonton. The areas, 5 top areas that people have, the citizens of Drumheller have, were number 1, break-in entries. 81.7% are interested in dealing with B&Es. The second one, drug trafficking. 73.86 responded, drug trafficking is a problem in our area. Property crimes and vandalism, 69.2%. Look at vandalism, property crimes as a problem. Theft from vehicles, 61.4%. Find vehicle theft a problem. Impaired driving, 45.10. And distracted driving, 42.48. 153 people this year. In 17 and 18, we had over 1,100 people. In 19, we had 330 people, citizens. These 5 categories that I've mentioned have been on top each year. We did the survey back in 18 when a lot of houses were being broke into, and we thought maybe that was influencing people that were doing the survey. But when we go back and compile the data from previous years to now, it is a problem, and people are looking at it as so. Break and entries, drug, property crimes, theft, and distracted driving. On question number 4 of the survey, it asks, what would you like to see the RCMP in our community do better? 69.39% of the people said more visibility. The police officers are in their squad cars driving around the community pretty much daily, but the average person on the street does not see that. How can we combat more visibility? Last summer, the staff sergeant started the program, Have a Coffee with the Constable, or Coffee with the Police, where they sat in a coffee shop. You could drop in, sit down, and have a coffee with them. That went over very well with the people that showed up. How can we get more visibility? I've talked to a few of our members on the policing committee. If the police were encouraged to stop in at businesses, let's say the Pioneer Center, if once a month, once a year, a constable stopped in and had a coffee at the Pioneer Center, I think that would speak volumes to this problem of more visibility. Any little thing where the people will have one-on-one, will see that the police are interested in me. I think that will combat the more police visibility. Second one was citizens on patrol. People said, we need a COP. We have that. And it is very viable. It is, I believe they have 27 members every weekend. COP is out on the streets from Nackmine all the way to East Cooley and Dorothy. Partnership with services. We really don't have a partnership here in the valley with policing agencies. Can we start one? It's like Crime Stoppers. We had a Crime Stoppers, as Fred can tell you. It's still here. The signs are still up. But do we need to have a Crime Stopper meeting every month or 4 times a year? Not really. What that does is it pulls the staff sergeant, it pulls a member of the RCMP, it pulls a member of the town away. If there's a problem with Crime Stoppers, yeah, let's give it a boost. Let's have a meeting with them and get them going. I don't even know who the president is anymore, Fred, do you? It was Mr. Spears, but I haven't heard since that. Public education. How do we educate the public? When we come up with an answer to that, we'll solve this one. The police have the DARE program in the schools. They have the bike program during the summer. They're actually doing as much as they can do. If the public does not take part in it, they don't see it. And that's what's showing on the survey. The second section of, I'm not going with what's on the thing, I'm jumping back. I was told I had 10 minutes. Question 2 of the survey trends. What are the policing issues that are concerned about? It shows a graph of all the years. What's at the top of the graph? For 8 years, break and enters, drug trafficking, property crimes and vandalism, theft from vehicles. 8 years, the public has been saying pretty much the same thing to us. 8 years, the police have attempted. But there's other ends of the Justice Committee that are failing us, not necessarily the police. What can we do about that? I've been banging my head for several years on this. Fred finally encouraged me to, I should be saying Councilman Makowicki, encouraged me to get off my butt and do something about it. So I did. As of June 23rd, I am now a member of the AAPG. On Thursday of this week, we're going to be holding a policing committee, and I'll have to turn the reins over to whomever to become chair. And I'm moving on to try to do something. What we can do, time will tell. The last couple years...
Larry, sorry, just to interrupt. Can you just, because you're on being broadcast, can you tell everyone at home what AAPG stands for, please?
Yeah, thanks. Now I just lost it. Alberta Association of Police Governance. It is kind of the policing committee, the police commission boss. Over the last couple of years, we have been meeting in Calgary and Edmonton, reviewing the Police Act. We are now, once COVID is completed or finished or off the table, we are going to be rewriting the Police Act. I have had the opportunity of being at 3 of the Police Act reviews, and they are going great. We have the basis now that once we start to rewrite the Police Act, it shouldn't take any more than a year. Alberta is looking at its own police force. That is one of the reasons that AAPG has just gotten into pushing to be part of the Police Act rewrite. And The AAPG, Alberta Association of Police Governance, has been invited to the Alberta Police Summit, which is going to be taking place in the near future in Edmonton. That is going to be the kickoff, hopefully, for the rewriting of the Police Act. In Alberta, small communities such as Munson, Mourne, Machichi, Delia. Drumheller is kind of special in Alberta in that our policing agency has the largest area to cover with all these communities. Alberta is now trying to figure out how these smaller communities can start paying for policing. I have a few ideas. I've shot them around, only to be shot down. But that's how we learn. We can move forward with areas. And that's what the Alberta Summit's going to be partially about, is smaller community policing. We had, on the 23rd of June, we had elections at the AAPG, and Mr. Coleman was voted again as chair of the AAPG. Mr. Coleman is from High River. He's been chair for 4 or 5 years. Done a bang-on job, very good job. The conference for AAPG is going to be taking place hopefully September, again, depending on COVID. And it will be in, just out of Busan. What's the name of the place it's going? Fred, you must know. Down south a little bit, a smaller town. I can't think of the name of it. We are short members on the policing committee. We had a member a week ago pass away, which opened up. Now we have, I believe, 3 vacancies on the policing committee. We've had 1 application. So hopefully, as of Thursday, we'll probably advertise for members and get some in. Now, there again, with our bylaws, we are to have a member from Munson, Mourne, Delia. We don't have that. I believe we've got Munson. Pardon me?
The counties actually.
Okay. So hopefully after Thursday, we'll get more members coming in. That's my 10 minutes.
Thanks very much, Larry. So before we begin, we will have a question period, and then hopefully we can get all the stuff from you. So Jake, go ahead.
Good to see you here, Larry. Thank you for all that you do in our community. I know this isn't the only thing on which you are active. I know it's not out of just curiosity. This survey is taken to mean it's meant to inform our local detachment as it relates to their annual priorities, correct?
Correct.
Do you feel like our local detachment is responsive to the results of this survey?
Very much so.
Yeah.
It started about 3 staff sergeants ago that they were very interested in it.
Okay.
In fact, they helped run around the community and hand out the hard copy of the survey, and then went around and collected them.
So would you say then that the consistency in what remains high in terms of community perceived needs, community perceived shortcomings, those kinds of things are more a function of just being intractable problems that are very complex and rather than a non-responsive detachment?
Yes.
Take just as one example, the break and enters. It's been something that, as you pointed out, is high on the community's list. Yes, we certainly saw some increase, but when we look at our local crime statistics that come forward quarterly to council, there's actually nothing jaw-dropping about them. There are no huge increases in any actual reported crime in the community. But I wonder if the concern around break-in enters in particular has any connection to the refusal by K Division to allow its members to respond to single zone alarms. It's been an issue that council's been made aware of in the last few years, and certainly we've been advocating that that a refusal to attend an alarm because it's only gone off in one part of the business strikes us as counterintuitive, that it's really not something worth investigating until a second alarm's gone off somewhere deeper in the building. And so I'm wondering if the community's concern around break-in enters is less about volume and more about how they're responded to.
Well, you know, there has been certain incidents where the police have not responded, but a majority of the in-town alarms, they have responded. And yes, several are false alarms. And Councilman McQuickie and I, we talked about it a while back. And you know, it'd be nice as if your alarm went off 3 times and 3 times in a row, false alarms. 3rd time on, you start paying for the response time of the officers. We looked into that, and there's only one body that can institute that. That's you people sitting here.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, you can put that into play just by a discussion with the RCMP here in the valley.
Certainly the overall in K Division, so over the entire province, that's the argument. That's the rationale for ceasing to respond to single zone alarms, is because of the high frequency of false alarms.
Right.
And so that makes sense. It's something we should look at some more. As well, you know, when the community tells us repeatedly that we need to do a better job as far as increased presence, that visibility you talked about, it sounds like from what you're saying that an appointed community liaison officer who makes direct contact with local business, the senior centers, town offices, you name it, would go a long way perhaps to increase the perception that the detachment is engaged and involved, because unless people seem to have a one-on-one interaction, put a name to a face, it's difficult to change that perception. Is it also possible that what the community is hoping for, and that if it happened more in the evenings, when more people were at home to notice, that just more neighborhood patrols, which I can honestly say I think happen infrequently in the evenings, that if that was something that was requested of the RCMP, that it might change the perception as well, if we were to go with those 2 prongs?
I think it would. The liaison you're talking about would be in the Mounties themselves.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that is a good step in the right direction.
Okay.
And I know back years ago, some of the staff sergeants were actually trying that, and it was working. The one I'm referring to is Mr. Charles, Kevin Charles. Mm-hmm. He was in the community almost every weekend. That made a big difference back in that year, because the graph shows that visibility was down some compared to what it has
As a
been.
concern, yeah. And lastly, Larry, as far as the drugs being a pervasive theme in the survey, certainly a concern of all of ours. In your relationship with the policing committee, has the RCMP accounted for, because we haven't had them before council in quite some time, have they accounted for why there are a number of known, and you can put that in air quotes if you want, because of course it's all subjective, known drug houses in the community that seem to be allowed to operate with some impunity? has there been any discussion, any accounting by the detachment for if we're aware of places where users go to gather methamphetamine and cocaine in this community, why on earth you would imagine that would be a fairly easy place to raid with some regularity, and hopefully discourage the practice in this community. There's been no accounting for that?
Well, I don't know if you can look for accounting, but I'm going to tell you straight out, that is a public problem. If you know your neighbor is a drug house and you do nothing about it, how are the police supposed to know? If the police get one complaint about this house, there's a lot of traffic coming in, is that reason enough to go and bust the door down and do a search? No. If the public, let's say, okay, I live in Green Tree. I'm looking down the street, and at night, there's 100 cars pull into this one address, and people run in and out. If I'm not willing to phone the police and tell them my observations, they're not going to know. I think the public has to start policing themselves, and when you see something, report it.
It's an important message. I do believe as citizens we have an accountability, of course. That's why I said known in quotation marks, because
Yep.
there's a tremendous amount of folklore that carries through every small town about this place and that place. And so I agree that they can't go on coffee shop rumor. They have to go on credible information.
Right.
At the same time, we're also not talking about a thriving metropolis. We're talking about a community of 8,000 people. It wouldn't take a hell of a lot of investigation or observation to verify even rumor. So when it comes to this part, it will be something that should the RCMP come before us at some point, I'll be asking them as well to
Yep.
account for what if their argument is the same, that they simply need more people in the community to come forward to confirm what they believe is that, to give them the probable cause to do more searches,
Right.
Then so be it. But I appreciate all your answers. Thanks for your time.
You're going to see in the very near future public policing more so than an officer on the street. In fact, Alberta right now is looking at a citizen police force where members of the community will be volunteers but issued equipment to walk down the street and keep an eye on what's going on. That is in the works right now in Edmonton, in the legislature. So there is going to be a move to public policing where, like COP, you drive around, you see a car that's been there parked in one area for 3-4 days, so you report the license number. And what happens? Oh, that car's been stolen. That's happened many times in our community. You're going to see a lot more of that coming.
Thanks again, Larry.
Lisa?
Well, hello, Larry. Thanks for coming again, as usual. Sad to see you moving on, but happy that you're moving on to perhaps do something that you feel is more productive and
Thank you.
to justify the means. So when it comes to the visibility aspect of this survey, I just want to tell you as a counselor, the biggest thing I hear quite often, and it echoes some of Jay's comments, is that the visibility is lacking in the evening and early morning. That's where people tend to constantly say, like, you know, there's no police on, right? Throughout the day, you see them driving around the community quite often. So I personally don't feel that that's where the issue's coming from. So perhaps when the survey goes out next year, maybe you could have a subcategory for visibility in regards to daytime visibility or evening visibility, so you can
Divide
get a
up.
better pulse on
Good point, yeah.
onto the community, right? And then the other aspect I wanted to yak a little bit about was in regards to the B&Es. So that does tend to be a huge issue in this community, but I think that when it comes down to reported B&Es, we're seeing a huge lack of it just because most of it's somebody stole my bottles or they stole something out of my backyard. I'm not going to waste the RCMP's time calling them. So perhaps even on that survey, maybe give them another subcategory as to non-reported or reported B&Es. And then what's your thoughts on, in regards to less uptake in regards to the citizen participation of the survey? I believe you said 1,100 people took it in 2018?
In 17 and 18, yeah.
17 and 18, and we had 153 take it this time around.
Well, okay, the biggest problem with the last couple of years has been the Survey Monkey itself. Like in 2019, I was the only one on the committee that had access to the Survey Monkey. I would go in, I would start inputting the data. If somebody at Town Hall, 2 people also had access. If somebody went in during the day that I was inputting, all my data was gone. And then after about the 3rd time that I phoned one of the ladies upstairs in Town Hall, requesting another password to get back in because it would kick me out and I'd have to redo the whole thing to get in, I figured, okay, I've got 330 applicants this year, last year. I'll get them all put in all at once. So I went through 4 hours, put them all in, printed it off, and it came up with 112 that had been inputted. So I phoned. Oh, yeah, it'll only accept up to 100 inputs.
So there's a bit of a technological glitch.
Yes. So I said to myself, okay, if I do 110 right now, wait for a week, do another 110. I ended up doing 3 inputs and printing off 3 surveys. And for 2019, I had to go through the 3 surveys, take an average one, and that's one we presented to the RCMP. So this year, 1 person on the committee has access to that Survey Monkey, to the survey. And he is a member of the fire department. I lost his name. I'm thinking way ahead, I can't. But he was at first having the same problems. And he finally got it working to the point where we got the survey. But there was only, it was our fault in that we had a late start this year. And then we really didn't advertise, and we didn't have the members running around handing the hard copy out. They tried to go electronic this year only. And I think that's a large piece why we only had 153.
Gotcha. But I mean, regardless, it still has a quite similar snapshot from the years following when you had a higher uptake, so.
Right.
Yeah, no, but thanks, Larry.
Anybody else, Fred?
Larry, thank you very much for coming, and congratulations on getting into the AAPG. I know that for myself, it was a good way to have this community keep a pulse on what changes were coming and stuff like that. Now, I know that when I was involved with the questionnaire, the top rate for probably 4 or 5 years in a row were traffic-related ones. So I think that we've seen, everybody can attest, we've seen a huge uptake on the traffic enforcement, and so that one moved down. Break and enters, I would really like to task the committee, and I'll bring it to the meeting, next meeting. I would like to actually take Lisa's question, or Jay's, I can't remember who it was, and see if there's a correlation between actual and perception. Because we always saw that when there was a huge amount of social media talking about, truck thefts, there would be a week where Grand Prairie and all over the province, there would be trucks. Have you seen this truck? Then we would see a spike in this as far as vehicles. So it would be really interesting seeing whether there was a correlation to that. I'd also like to see, it was a disturbing trend that number 15, the sexual assault, sitting at almost 36%. When we were doing it, there was a abnormally large number of under 25s that were answering that as a top concern. And that was always bothersome, whether there was something going on that should be looked at harder. So I would like that to be examined in a little more detail as well. I would think, Larry, also your
Just
numbers.
before you go on, Fred, if I may interject.
Yeah,
If you remember in 2017, several houses were broke into.
yeah,
Two of them where there was the house lady home when they were broke into. 2017, we had the largest spike on the survey for B&Es. So correlation of what the media is putting out,
yeah.
correlation of what's going on in our community in the talk in the coffee shops,
Yeah.
that has a big correlation. We've already shown that on the graphs.
Yeah.
Has a large correlation to
Yeah.
the survey.
But I think it would be a job of the police committee to also maybe relay that and put that in perspective as well. Because if we have a perception of break and enter and drug trafficking and stuff, when in fact it's no more normal, it's as normal as it has been, then I think we need to do work as a police committee, making sure that that information flows, so that if not to change people's opinion, but to rather inform them that in fact the police are doing some pretty damn good work. And I know, as far as a question about are we doing the drug houses and stuff, I know that there's a lot of stuff happening that isn't talked about, nor can it be talked about, and a lot of in the door, out the door recognizance stuff, and stuff that we're never privy to, and probably will never be privy to. But I can say that from being at that level, that they're working pretty darn hard on that stuff as well. Great job, Larry. I'm looking forward to the next meeting. Get some of these numbers looked at a little bit closer, and start work on how we can get more people to participate. We still, at 153, still probably have 500% more than most other police committees in the province. And I think, Larry, you could correct me if I'm wrong, that there's been other detachments and the RCMP looking at our survey as a way of getting more public input. So,
Yes, you are right.
Yeah.
The survey is now in 7 different communities. Survey as you see it here. And as I say, one reason I moved to the AAPG is I'm going to be taking this survey to the AAPG, and we are going to do a survey that will be sent out to every policing committee and policing commission for their communities. Drumheller has led the way on the survey, and for the last 3 years, Drumheller has been a large portion of the AAPG conference about how they've done the survey, the results are coming up with. The 7 communities I told you that now do a survey, they are coming up with very similar results as what we are. So it's not just localized here in Drumheller. It is all through our province. Thank you.
Anybody else, Jay?
Unless there's anybody else. Just circling back to what Councillor Makawecki was talking about, and I'm not sure whether it's a policing committee request or a request of the detachment themselves, but I agree, Fred. I mean, the likelihood or the possibility that one particular kind of crime might be top of mind, front of mind at the survey because a well-known, frightening event that's much talked about occurred, but it was still the only time it happened that year, gives the survey a disproportionate view of things. Yep. So perhaps it is actually a request of the RCMP to take the survey and compare it to the actual reported crime statistics and talk about whether or not we have a perception problem or an actual problem, right? Yep. Yeah. And I would also argue, just having minor interest in statistics, certainly it's possible, especially with an increase in rural crime, that there are common occurrence, common themes throughout surveys. But if the same survey is yielding the same results in 7 different communities, it's actually also entirely possible that the survey has some biases in the answers that are allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say too, Jay, that there's questions in there that are repeated in another way, so that question is asked more than once. Yeah, so that's a way to try to see whether that's an accidental spike or whether that continues.
Anybody else? Okay, just want the policing committee to know that I had attended a connections program with the schools, both DVSS and St. Anthony's, and they want to work close with the RCMP on, there's a proven thing that if a child graduates in this program, like through with this program, they figured out if children graduate, then they're less chance to get involved in drugs and crime and whatever. So Sergeant Bork told us that he would set it up that the police went to the schools at least, once a month? So it'd be good if you guys just kind of keep following that up, because I think it's really important that you.
Okay.
And then as far as anybody watching, there are 3 vacancies on the policing committees, so let's get out and support and get involved to help. Go ahead, Fred.
Why are you resigning as chair? You have to be on the committee still to be on the APG, right?
Yes.
But you don't want to do the chair and that.
Well, I'm tied up with about 4 different organizations
Okay.
here in the valley, so.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Enough said. Thanks, Larry.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Larry, for attending. We appreciate your
Thank you.
time, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to 6.1.1, Daryl.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just wanted to give a little bit of an update on relaunch strategy for Alberta. So this is primarily related to our recreational facilities. I guess the short answer is there's no change from a couple of weeks ago. The province, the only thing they did is they started allowing 100 spectators to be inside an indoor facility, but still the maximum number of participants and staff and everything is 100 people. So we're still on, we're actually doing a bit of work in the BCF now that it's down. We've got a bit of HVAC work that we're doing, and are still looking to open it at the end of August, beginning of September, barring any other changes from the province, like stage 3. And just again, to reiterate, the part of it is that we're not unique with that. We're seeing a lot of the facilities in Calgary area and Airdrie and that they're having a real challenge opening simply because of trying to manage the social distancing space, and things like treadmills, tracks where they're telling you need at least 3 meters distance between these things. That's where it's just very difficult to actually try to get this stuff done. The pool is, again, the changing rooms are being done as part of our plan for the summertime. If we wanted to, again, we talked about opening the outdoor pool. We would take about 3 to 4 weeks to open it, and we would still need to bring in a trailer for a changing room. So we're not going to do that until we have the changing rooms completed for the Aquaplex. We opened the spray park on July 2nd. So last Thursday. And so it's been great. We've had it fenced off. We have a couple of people that are kind of monitoring the usage, or the people going in and out. We close it every 50 minutes and disinfect it. So a lot of really positive comments from the public. A lot of the parents are really happy to see that, and they're feeling that their kids are quite safe. And we've been getting about 400 people, or 400 users a day through the facility, so through the spray park. So great to see that. And even as of today, Monday afternoon, 4 o'clock, we had 260 plus through the spray park. So we are seeing lots of kids utilize it, and especially with the weather the last few days, it's just fantastic to see. So that's just a little bit of an update on that. So any questions?
Questions? Oh, thanks, Daryl. All right, let's move on to 6.2.1, Dave.
Good evening. So this item is a request for decision to award the contract for the street improvement program for 2020. We released the the documents as a tender. We got 3 tenders submitted. Rubydale Asphalt Works, Brooks Asphalt Works, and Consite Construction. We are recommending award to Rubydale Asphalt Works. We are limiting portions of what was in the original in the tender document in order to bring it down under budget. Included in the original tender document was some elements for Alberta Parks and Alberta Transportation that we're still waiting on confirmation of approval on, but we can award, as the tender is written, that those items would be contingent upon approval by the province, so we can continue this. And we want to award it and get the work going so that we can meet the scheduled completion dates. The big item in this year's work is going to be the town-owned portion of the parking lot by the Shoppers, because it is deteriorated quite badly, and Cedar Crescent as well. We'll be working over in the Green Tree area to start improving those roads. Along with the work, we'll also be doing some engineering work to investigate some stuff for next year's projects so that we can get some geotech done on a couple of intersections and areas where we're having some issues, but that'll be done through the engineering contract that exists with MPE already that was awarded in 2018 for a 3-year contract for them to provide engineering support. Okay.
Can I get a motion on the floor, please? Lisa, go ahead.
I move that the Street Improvement Program 2020 request for tender be awarded to Rubydale Asphalt Works for the amount of $1,44,674.86, excluding GST.
Seconder, Fred, comments? Jay?
Dave, super glad to hear about the work on Cedar Crescent. I know that in order to maintain our tax increases at the level that we have for the last several years, we've been doing these things a piece at a time. And I know that much as it took us several years to complete the work in Hunts, Cedar has a long-suffering neighborhood when it comes to this. But it does appear as though we're doing the overwhelming majority of it all in 1 year.
We're doing as much as we can reasonably do this time around. There is going to have to be some additional work and follow-up here, and that additional work in the subsequent years is some of what we need to do some geotech for in order to prep for it for next year, because it's the section that we're leaving is a section that's got some that we're from word of mouth and experience digging in the area. It's flagging that there's large bentonite issues there, so we want to confirm what exactly is going on there before we move into that section.
Makes
the portion
sense.
that we're doing right now, we're more confident on what's there, and we'll be working forward from that.
Makes great sense. I appreciate that the scope of the project has been curtailed to fit the budget. Can you give me a quick version of what are we not doing this year? What's being slotted to 2021?
I don't have the complete list off the top of my head, but we originally bid out in the tender document. We had requested 4 of the concrete drainage swales at different intersections throughout the municipality be done. We are eliminating 1 of those so that we can bring it in budget. We are also going to be reducing the amount of concrete standalone sidewalk and curbs that we were doing in order to bring the budget down. We're keeping the list intact though, so we are going to be able to track that those ones will be the priority items for subsequent years. We also gotten flagged to us after some markings got put on to a couple of sections of sidewalk. Locals in the area identified that there was actually drainage issues off of the adjoining road, so we've delayed those ones so that we can rectify the entire problem in one go in the future larger scale piece of work.
Excellent. And lastly, it seems like a less competitive environment at the moment. You only get 3 tenders. Normally, usually the list is 4 to 6 long. This is maybe a dumb question, but the recommended contractor is willing to do 30% less work. They're interested in a contract that's 30% less than what we had originally tendered?
As part of the tender process, we had put it out to public bid and required a mandatory site meeting. We got a good turnout, but less than we've had in previous years. Most of our contractor that won the bid last year had indicated that he didn't actually bid this year. He bid as a sub to someone else because of other workloads. So I believe part of the issue is right now that for various reasons, the roadwork guys are excessively busy. So the tender was written on the basis that we could reduce the size based on the values come in. It's common practice, and this is what we're.
You don't expect that
this is
they'll
our limit.
retract?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Well done.
Anybody else? Lisa?
My little rabbit hole. It was brought to my attention today that a couple of community members that live along Newcastle Trail were hoping that some year that stretch of road would get put on that list. So I'm just lobbing that over your way.
We are aware of that. Part of what we're doing right now with different sections of road is we're making sure that we don't pave or rebuild a road that will get heavily affected or driven over during the flood work. So that portion of Newcastle, I don't think is going to be one of the ones that would potentially be affected, but it depends on a lot of stuff. So we're trying to larger scale road work. We're trying to avoid the stuff that's close to the river, just in case something comes up and we don't want to pave the road one year and then the next year have a large amount of truck traffic over it for some other reason. So we're trying to avoid those sections, but we're aware of them. And if there's a major concern in those areas, we'll evaluate them on that basis. But we're aware of the areas that need to get done, and we're trying to prioritize them in a way that allows us to do work once and not have to do it again a second time.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Dave. We'll move on to 6.3.1. Sean?
Thank you, Your Worship, and Council. You have an RFD before you, a request for decision with regards to residential development incentive programs. The incentive programs, there's two of them. There is a residential developer, that's for developers to come in and build buildings, as well as a multi-unit residential rental to bring people in to build multi-unit dwellings, apartment buildings and whatnot. So the reason why we're doing this is we've noticed a real, a lack of affordable homes between the 180 to 250 range, new homes, and also to help the millennial and seniors cohort get into more affordable homes as well. So the reason why we're doing this, of course, is for positive economic growth, population growth, and an expanded tax base. The policies are aggressive. They're probably a little less aggressive than, say, Saskatchewan. They usually go up to 5 years on some of their things, but we're
Who wants to go there?
I'm going to be Switzerland. But I would say these are pretty darn good and pretty aggressive for Alberta. And considering with the new Alberta Provincial Recovery Program, I think getting in on the bottom floor with some good incentive programs will really mean a lot. So just as a caveat, these have been vetted by our town solicitor, as well as I've spoken to municipal advisors with the Municipal Affairs Department. And one recommendation that they did have come out of that, which I neglected to put in here, is that this bylaw should be reviewed once per council term, just because it's good practice. So the residential incentive program, I'll just briefly go through this. It would allow a 100% property tax abatement for the first year. The second year would be 50%, and the third year would be 25%. So we've got a sliding rule down. If a developer purchases land from the town to build any of these developments, we would require a 20% deposit on the land, and once the dwelling's sold, we would get the rest of the money. So that, again, that's an incentive to motivate people to build. We also have a number of components in here that would make sure that buildings aren't bought by people that are just going to rent them out immediately. There will be obviously consequences, meaning that they would not get the tax incentive if that happens. The cost to the residential developers housing incentive policy, we're looking at approximately $3,150 to $4,025 over the 3-year period, which to me, taking a 3-year hit on taxes for, say, a building that's going to be 50 or 60 or 70 years old, that's to me, that doesn't mean a whole lot because we're actually motivating someone to build these buildings, and we get all those many decades of tax revenue after that. With regards to the residential or the multi-unit dwelling, same scenario, but they have a 4-year, and the 4-year would run 100% the first year, 75% the second year, third year would be 50%, and the fourth year would be 25%. And the reason why I went a little bit longer on that one is it's usually to build an apartment building is a lot more expensive than a house, and a lot harder to incent people to build those within the range that we're looking at. There's a caveat in here that basically says you can't, rent has to start out at $850 a month, and it's indexed to the Canadian Consumers Price Index, whichever that percentage is going to be year over year. And again, those things are built in, there's certain components built in to ensure that developers are going to do what they're going to do, and if they don't do what they're going to do, they won't get the tax incentive. So I'm not sure if there's any questions. Oh, and I should just mention the revenue for that would be $7,500 for a 4-unit dwelling, up to $22,000 a year for a 30-unit dwelling. So obviously it's a little more expensive, but if someone's going to come in and build a 30-unit dwelling, and there's going to be many years of gathering taxes from that to go into programs and services for the town. So I'm not sure if there's any questions.
Okay, so I just want council to know that what Sean had presented was a preamble up to the bylaws. There won't be a motion. So what I'm going to ask for is motion of first reading on this bylaw, please. Christine, second. Lisa, all in favor? Carried. So Daryl, just to confirm, Sean wants to go 3 readings on this bylaw. So I'm going to go into second reading, and then I'll ask for, no, but he's requested that, so I'm just putting it on the
Yeah,
table.
so for 2 readings and then.
So if we can get the second reading tonight, then we can go into, if not third, then we'll go next time. So can I get a motion for second reading? Tony, second. Jay, comments. Christine?
Thanks, Sean. Oh, there it is. Could you just run that, if the land is owned by the town, the 20% is, can you run that part by me again, sorry?
Right, so if it's town-owned land, we would require a 20% deposit, and the balance would be payable when the building is sold.
So does it end in that 4th year or until it sells?
Until that, either the 3rd year or it sells. So in my experience, I don't know anyone that's going to build a house and sit on a house. So I can tell you they'll definitely be motivated to sell the house. And there's also an added selling feature for the developer, because if they can pass on an incentive to someone that's going to get a 50% or a 25% reduction in their taxes for the following 2 years, that's a really good selling point.
Okay. And then my next question was on Schedule B. So I'm just curious if you can explain that 2.1.3 about the no more than 850, how that necessarily works? Because like, if you've got a condo that's got 20 units in it versus a townhouse that's got 4, it might have higher level finishes in that. Like, is that 850 just, you can't go any higher than that sort of a thing, or how does that work?
Right, so basically, affordable apartments are around that 850 range. So it'll be up to the developer to basically come up with his cost model to do that. I happen to know it's very possible to do this because I've seen it in Calgary and Edmonton and places all over this country, so I know it can be done. It's just a matter of a developer wanting to take this up and see that there's some value in here.
Right. And so would there be any options for somebody who maybe went that step higher but not much more, like 1,000 a month rent? Like, is that an option to
No.
look at, or we're just staying down?
Not an option.
Okay.
This is for affordable, and once you get up around that 1,000 range, especially in Drumheller, I think 1,000's a lot of money for this market for rent. I think 850's
Oh.
appropriate, and research I did is that's an appropriate number.
No,
So,
perfect. Thank you for the clarification.
Lisa?
Well, thanks, Sean.
Surely.
So I'm going to start with Schedule B first, because I think that one makes the most sense to me in regards to 2.7. So I heat and hot about this, but I think you answered the question for me. So if a developer sells a building during the incentive period, the balance of the incentive is automatically transferred to the new owner if the conditions of this policy are maintained. So is that like the carrot on the end of the stick in regards to keeping the rent at 850?
An index, correct.
Okay, so flipping back to Schedule A to 2.9. This one, I guess, kind of bugs me a little bit. So I don't know if the point of that was to keep the 2.8.2, the dwelling is not used as an income property, kind of out of the loop.
Right.
But, so where it's bugging me is mostly the fact that this is to promote development, not necessarily those moving into the home, right? So the developer's getting the benefit to come and build here, right? So, and I think the person who's buying it gets the benefit of having a brand new home. So I'm bothered on the fact that, I'm just going to say it, I don't feel that somebody who purchases a home after it being on the market for 6 months should have another 3.5 years worth of tax-free benefits or close to.
Right. Again, it's part of the selling point for a developer to move houses quicker, because part of this is about not only affordable houses for millennials and seniors, it's about population growth and the benefits that come off that return on investment from people moving here. So that's kind of why that was phrased this way, because it doesn't do us any good if, say, someone in town who buys houses and rents them out, buys one of these houses and then rents it out for $1,000 a month, is really defeating the purpose of affordable housing for people. And it's not really growing the population, because I will never, ever pay $1,000 a month for rent again.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think anyone else should in a market like Drumheller's market
Yeah.
or any smaller rural communities.
I don't disagree. I'm just, in my mind, I'm like, is there not a different avenue or a different caveat to put in to stop it from being used as an income property rather than continuing offering the tax abatement for a new homeowner?
I guess going back to my comment about this being an opportunity for developers to move houses more quickly and grow a population more quickly, I think that sure, a great price on a house is something, but if you can offer something to motivate people to move here with an incentive, I think that's also a great idea. And again, I've used this in other provinces. I'm not going to say which ones, but they've worked very well there. So.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for your explanation.
Sure.
It still kind of bugs me, but I get it.
Jay?
Sean, the biggest things that bug me about 2.81 and 2.81 and 2.82 is that they should be labeled 2.91 and 2.92. But other than that, I understand what Councillor Henson-Zachary was getting to, but at the same time, I think the incentives, while a tremendous leap forward in this community, we've never in our time considered such a program on the residential side. It does attempt to meet the goal of community growth, and that's why I think those disincentives to just have people again build and expand their rental property portfolio is not what we were intending. This is Schedule A is to encourage new home development, new home purchases by new home buyers in our community to fit those demographics that we're trying to attract. And I think you brushed over it, Sean, but it can't be said too many times. The intention of this program is to expand the tax base in the long term. And sometimes you have to give up some short-term revenue in order to do that. It's a tough pill to swallow for all of us who pay our taxes every year. But the same thing was true about the business incentives, and we found a way to come around to seeing those as well. Let's see, what else did I have? I really like the fact that the schedule is attractive not just to the developer but to the buyer. I mean, the fact that it's just not a year or two when it is possible for a developer to have to, at least in the past, sit on a property for that amount of time. And I think that might have discouraged the breadth of developers willing to come to our community, because we do see just the same couple of names over and over again. That maybe an incentive program like this will help encourage some more diversity in who's willing to come and develop in our community. And at the same time, still allow for a couple of years or a year or two to be remaining to the actual property owner to see some temporary savings. It is a hard pill to swallow, and that's why I'm thinking about objecting to third reading tonight only, in that I would like to provide the 2 weeks for the community, both those who are perhaps considering a higher end rental building and concerned about being excluded because of the maximum rent in the program. To have somebody give them the chance to come forward and plead their case about why they might still be appropriate for this program. And I had, since we did see this draft of this at a committee of the whole, and I have had absolutely no feedback from the community in any way, shape, or form. The pause button, just to provide the 2 weeks break between second and third reading, gives the community one last chance to air any grievances they may have about the program. I'm not concerned about the revenue loss, because once again, we're talking about money we don't get now. We're talking about the fact that these places don't exist. And so to get no money on something brand new for 1 year and then get some money on something that didn't exist before, and then eventually all the money is very, very good for this tax base. So I'm really pleased to see us considering a brave move like this. And it can't be stated enough that you are telling us that you have used a very similar strategy in other jurisdictions more than once to success. Correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
And if I could just add something, if we look at 4.1, if a unique incentive request is submitted to the town of Drumheller with the approval of council, the above criteria may be waived or modified to recognize the uniqueness of a request. So
Sweet.
there's your high-end apartments and homes. So
Fred?
Well, thanks, Sean. I'd echo a lot of things that Lisa and Christine and Jay have said. So I was thinking about the giving some time for third reading, but a few things would change my mind perhaps and allow it to go forward. Is this a part of your advertising campaign strategy for Calgary?
absolutely. So we'll have the best residential incentives in the province coupled with the best commercial
Right.
incentives in the province.
And when was that scheduled to take off?
That will be starting on July 13th, and there will be a communique going out very shortly to council on that.
So then if we delay for 2 weeks, it won't be a part of that, is that correct? 1 week delay?
1 week delay, yeah.
Okay. All right. Can you give examples of, now you just said that we would be have the most advantage as far as this, a program like this? So there's nobody else in the province doing this right now?
There's one other community, I think, that's going a year, and at 50% for the first year. I think that's the only one that I know of.
Okay.
But in all the provinces around us, they can go up to 5 years.
Okay.
A lot of them.
And this is a direct result of the changes in the province allowing us to do a little bit of work with taxes and things like that, right, on the municipal side?
No.
No?
The municipal government, or sorry, the provincial government made some changes to the commercial side of things.
Okay.
This is fairly innovative in terms that not a lot of communities go past 1 year.
Okay. So one other place in Alberta, and we are doing a bang-up campaign to let people know that we're a great community to move to. And this would be a part of it, letting them know that there's room for development and things like that. So that would enhance that. I think that's all my questions. I was going to ask for more time, but really, my goal has always been trying to expand the tax base. I agree with you, Jay, and that we're putting a good portion of we're rolling the dice on that using the unhappiness in other areas with tax rates and the cost of doing business and stuff like that. I think this would be a really important part of that whole package in getting people to look at our community as a viable place to move. So great work. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Tony?
Thanks for your work on this, Sean. I'm excited to see this come forward as the residential balance to the commercial side that we already have in place. And just to reiterate Jay's point, we haven't lost anything because we don't have anything, right?
Exactly.
So, and I look forward to losing a little bit in order to gain on the long term. So very good. Complements the commercial side. I really hope it takes off and makes a difference. Just one question on Schedule B, though, and I just need clarity on Section 3 disappeared. Is that on purpose? 3.0 was the process.
Right, that
with
was
3.1 and 3.2. Is that
that
purposely
was
left out, or?
that was that should where it says 4 should be 3. So I apologize for that.
So 3 is responsibilities then, so there is no 3 then?
No.
Okay, and then just going to 2.2.1, just a typo there on convert the units.
Right. Sorry, I apologize. Generally, I can't count and spell. So
That's it. Good luck with that, Sean.
thank you.
Christine? Go ahead.
Sorry, I just asked my questions and I never said the nice stuff. So, yeah, I think this is an amazing opportunity to attract new citizens. And I know you mentioned millennials. It's a really good opportunity, but it's also really good for those of us and many people who are in the renting game here in Drumheller now. Great opportunity to get into ownership as well. So this is going to be awesome. Thank you for doing this.
Great. Well, it should go a long way to sustainability. And like I said, it's anyone that owns a business knows that they have to make a little bit of investment to make some money down the road. And I think this will do it. So.
Okay, so I can't remember who made the second motion. Tony? Would you accept a friendly amendment to this, first of all, to be reviewed by council every term, and as well as accept the changes that were repaired?
I will.
All right, thank you. And so therefore,
Sorry, Your Worship, just before you close the discussion, can I just get that clarified again? There is a ticking time on this in terms of?
Yeah, because the marketing campaign is going out July 13th for.
Oh, heavens. Okay, thank you.
Well, there isn't, right? Just to be clear, there isn't a time, like, if it's the 20th, it's the 20th, right?
Right.
Like,
So-
sooner get it right. Like, so my recommendation is that you don't do second reading. We make the changes as discussed here, because there are some omissions in here, and then bring it back for second and third reading on the 20th. And we've
Rather
done that
just
as-
third, you mean?
We already made second
There's already been a
reading.
motion on the floor for second reading.
Right.
So we can make the motion with the amendments, and then we can do third reading on the 20th.
With all the corrections noted so that everyone sees.
But
what the
then it
final
won't be part of
is.
your campaign.
It'll still be part of the campaign because we're going to be directing people to a landing page where we can say,
Okay, all
"Coming
right, so it's
soon."
not like it's gonna stop
It's
everything.
not going to make a
Okay,
difference.
that's the important thing. Okay, so we'll leave it at second reading. Everything's been changed with the amendment, and then we will bring it back for third reading on the 20th. Is that fair?
Perfect.
With all the changes? Noted. Yeah, I'm just making sure I got nothing else before I go. Everybody good? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for being proactive, advancing our community, and just mad at you because you're leaving me.
Resignation not accepted.
Should have your ass kicked. Oops, sorry, didn't say that in public. I'm gonna put roadblocks on top of the hill. Okay, well, thank you for that. Can I get a motion to go on camera? We're discussing a public land matter, and just for the viewing public, after this, we are done for the day. So motion, Fred. Seconder, Lisa. All in favor? Carried.